Today I'm going to change the oil on a lovely 2013 Jetta TDI. This is the the one that has the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal issue, where its emissions are of nitrous oxides are higher than they are supposed to be. But other than that, it's been a really great car. It gets routinely 45 miles to the gallon on the highway, sometimes even a little higher, and usually high 30s, low 40s around town. And it's really a pleasure to drive. A little turbo engine. It's peppy, pretty smooth. It's very happy with this car. Anyhow, to change the oil fill is, of course, right here at the back of the valve cover. The dipstick is here in the front, and the oil filter is a cartridge filter that's under this shroud. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull this shroud off. Pulling the shroud off is real easy. You just kind of grab an edge and just kind of gently tug up. And the way it is, or the way it works, is there are these little 4 rubber cups, and those little rubber cups go on one of these little balls, kind of a ball and socket joint. So one's here, one's here, one's here, and one's here. So that oil filter, that cartridge filter, is right here under that black plastic cap. I like to take that out and change that before I drain the oil. That way any oil that is in the oil filter housing, when I open it up, gets to drain down into the oil pan. So to loosen it up, I've got a 1 1/4 inch socket here on a breaker bar, and that gives me just enough room to fit it in and get it on there. And it's not very tight, so I can just loosen it up. Another thing you can use to get it out is, it's that same socket, but this is a wobble extension. It's a little bit angled cut on the end that goes into the socket, and it allows your socket to flop around a little bit, and that gives you just enough angle to turn it with a to still turn it. And then once it's loose enough, you should be able to finish unscrewing it by hand. So now that I've loosened it up, I'm just going to let it sit a minute. Try to let some of that oil drain down into the crankcase. I've got a rag handy so that when I pull it up, I can catch any oil that's dripping. And there's just enough room to wiggle it out. And you'll see that the oil is kind of captive in the cap here. So this is the cartridge filter, and it has an O-ring on the end. And this O-ring is what plugs up the bottom of that housing. And so by pulling this O-ring out, that's what lets it drain out. I've got my new filter in a box here, ready to go. You can see that it is the cartridge, just like the old one, and there's an O-ring in there as well. The O-ring is for the cap, actually. The O-ring is right here, and this is what seals the cap, and it's that pressure on the O-ring, which is why it takes a few turns before it's ready to unspin. I like to use a little flathead screwdriver, and I'm able to just hook it under that O-ring, the old O-ring, and pull it off. For the new O-ring, to put it on, I like it to be a little damp with oil. There's usually a little residual oil down in the filter housing here, so I can just kind of stick the O-ring down into it, and when I pull it up, it's a little oily, so I just kind of spread that oil around the whole O-ring. And once the oil's on the whole O-ring, I just stretch it over the cap and make sure it's in that groove at the end of the threads there. And then we're just going to put the new element. It's going to kind of snap into place. There it is. And then with a little bit of leftover oil on my fingers, I'm going to make sure that that bottom O-ring is well lubricated. And then I'm ready to put it all back into place. Kind of spread the hoses a little bit. Wiggle it in. And I'm ready to thread it in by hand. To tighten it down, I'm actually going to use a little bit of a different configuration because it fits in a little bit better. This is a 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter on the socket, and then this is a longer extension. Again, it does have that little wobble drive in the end, but the longer extension allows me to kind of reach between this little hose, and it's a straighter shot. So I'm going to just snug up that filter cap until it just stops, so it just bottoms out, and then just really, you don't want to go past bottoming out, just a little bit of pressure after bottoming out, otherwise it's going to break that flange off that plastic cap. Now before we raise the car up, I'm just going to undo the oil filter cap, and I'm going to leave it in place so nothing big can fall in, but that will just allow air to go in as the oil drains out. We have to remove the belly pan from under the car, which all it involves is undoing a bunch of little Torx head screws along the back, along the front, and along the sides. I like using Blackstone Laboratories in Indiana for oil analysis. So they send a little sample kit like this. Inside is the sample bottle, a plastic bag, and a little absorbent towel to wrap around it, and then a little piece of paper that you put your information on. And also a little sticker to put on your windshield to say when the sample was taken. And now you can see at the back of the engine, there's the drain plug right here, 19mm socket. As for it, I'm just going to loosen it up. A little breaker bar. Once I unscrew this, I want to take the sample. Just by holding that coupling, that little bottle in the back, it'll fill right up. After all the oil is drained out, I let this sit about 15 minutes. I'm ready to put in the drain plug. I always kind of look at the washer on the drain plug and make sure that it's not damaged or there's no funny crushed areas on it. And every so often I do replace these drain plugs. The little washer is captive on the thread, so you can't change just the washer. But you can buy the whole plug, and it's like $1.95 or something. Not a whole lot. Thread it in. And then snug it up. Now just because I'm using a long breaker bar here doesn't mean I'm going to tighten it up a lot. It just has to be just a little bit more than just nice and snug. Now the exciting time of pouring oil in. I always tear off the tin foil because I've seen people just push it in with their thumb and have it come off and into the engine. And that's not something I want to ever have happen. It takes 5 quarts. For the TDI cars, it's important that you use the Castrol LL03. The LL03 is the approved Volkswagen oil for the TDI diesels. done.